priority to me.
This is Commissioner Hertzfeld. Motion to approve.
Thank you, Trista. A second, please. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Jesse.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, Kelly, would you once again call the roll for us?
Yes. Commissioner Reynolds, how do you vote?
I vote to approve. Yes, please.
Commissioner Hertzfeld, how do you vote?
Approve, please.
Commissioner Starling, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Neal, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Delannis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you all very much. We now have before us our minutes from the April 9, 2020 meeting, and Mr. Roberts sent around in a second email, I think, the version that Mr. Delannis had added some comments and corrections to. Does the commission need any time to review that version before we take an action to approve our meeting minutes from last Friday, April 9th? If not, do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
AJ, I make a motion to approve the minutes as read.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
This is Jesse. I'll second.
Jesse, did I hear you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Any discussion or questions with regard to the minutes of April 9? If not, we have a motion and a second. Kelly, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Reynolds, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Hertzfeld, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Starling, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Neal, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Delannis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. We return to the ballot, which we initially discussed last Friday, with the recognition that some potential changes were still in motion. Why don't I, at this point, turn the floor over to our AOE, Jeff Roberts, and to Bobby Medley to take us through the ballot, please.
Yes, Jeff sent you in your packet or in your email 4 ballots. The Republican ballot style 1, the Democrat ballot style 1, one of the generals without O'Keel, then of course the O'Keel. As you can see, we added the Court of Appeals that we were surprised with the email last Thursday, and we received the official list from the state late last night of the candidates.
Are there questions from the commission to Bobby or Jeff or anyone else for that matter with regard to the ballot?
This is Tricia. No, I don't have any questions on that, but I'm hearing incredible static and feedback on the line. Is everybody on mute when they're not talking?
We've got the state.
Maybe nobody else. You do.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's just a static maybe, but you're right. It is definitely sounds like a bowl of Rice Krispies.
It came on when NPR joined us. You may want to check to see if you can mute or call back.
I am muted at this time.
Okay. We will hope this gets better, but rather than all hang up and call back in, if you guys don't mind, I think we need to continue.
I'll make a motion to approve the ballot.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
This is Jesse. I'll second.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or discussion with regard to the ballot? If not, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the ballot for the August 6th election, we'll take a roll call. Ms. Harrison again, please.
Okay. Commissioner Reynolds, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Hertzfeld, how do you vote?
Approve?
Commissioner Starling, how do you vote?
Approve.
Commissioner Neal, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Delanis, how do you vote?
Commissioner Delanis?
Commissioner Delanis, how do you vote?
Yes, sorry. I was on mute.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. As we all know, given the fact we're meeting telephonically this afternoon, we continue to live in unusual times with the coronavirus pandemic. We had an excellent discussion last week with regard to planning for the August 6th election. And I believe Jeff, in addition to his AOE report, wants to walk us through, as our agenda indicates, some potential early voting options for August 6th. Jeff?
Right. We've included in your packet an expanded early voting schedule option where we would open all early voting locations for the full early voting period. We think that will give us the best opportunity to spread the voting public out a little bit and to satisfy the CDC guidelines to do so. So that's what you see at the top of the page. I think since you've already voted on the previous early voting schedule, I think you would need to vote on this expanded early voting schedule for August now.
Any questions? Okay, sorry, AJ.
I make a motion to approve the changes on the early voting opening and closing.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Jim Delanis.
Yes.
Can we have just a moment more to look at it?
Of course.
And I will tell you, as you're looking, all the locations are exactly the same as our traditional early voting locations, and all of the times are the same as what you've approved previously. We are just adding the 10 locations would come on day one of early voting instead of that second week. Okay. And looks like we have four evening times. In other words, 4 times when we're up until 7 o'clock. That's correct. Every Tuesday and Thursday, as tradition, we would be open until 7 o'clock. Okay. I'm ready to proceed if other people are.
I'll second this. Jesse, I was going to second the motion to adopt the updated schedule for the early voting location.
This is Tricia. I just defer to the discussion portion. I really like the tips for voting that's at the bottom of it, that people can use their own personal pen, hand sanitizer, encouraging people to do absentee ballots. I think this is really great.
And we'll talk about that. Leads us into the next part of the discussion, Commissioner Hertzfeld, when we talk about our timeline. That gives you some of the ideas. This will be the first page of the sample ballot that we plan to send out.
And it's great communication. I like it a lot.
Okay. I have this is Jim Delanis. I have a question. Where are these tips taken from? We took, many of them followed the CDC guidelines, But then we had a meeting here in the office where we kind of fleshed out what we thought would be easily understood items for the public to use.
So Jeff, this is Emily with a question. Should we not have access to some of these sites, which hopefully, obviously, we certainly will, but what's a potential backup plan at this juncture? And obviously, that's a great deal to communicate. I know the sample ballot, however, has to be printed and mailed.
Correct. I think what we would recommend to you, since if you'll notice, most of these locations are metro facilities.
Yeah.
If one of these facilities would not be available because it's quarantined or something, we would try to find another metro facility reasonably close by where we could make early voting happen.
Okay.
Because it would have to be in a metro facility in order for us to be able to connect to the database.
Exactly. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
This is Jim Delanis. This is off point, but is Ms. Ecke on the line with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, in addition to that sweet bird tweeting, Kelly, would you be so kind as to call the roll?
Absolutely. Chairman Reynolds, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Hertzfield, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Starling, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Neal, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Delanis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you all very much. So why don't we segue to what Jeff mentioned a moment ago that reflects some of our good team's further discussion on this. And if you want to turn to the draft timeline next, Jeff?
Right. So the draft timeline here, we had a meeting and tried to put some thoughts down as to what our actions needed to be in the coming weeks and months. Included in your packet, that first line item there, I included an email from Mark Goen discussing PPE supplies and what the state was doing. I've had multiple conversations with Mark over the last few days, and they are working on this in a big way. So I feel confident that our needs will be covered as far as PPE supplies. The next item there, the sample ballot, the week of April 20th. Like we mentioned earlier, that first page that you saw with the early voting sites, that will be the first page of the sample ballot. Included in the sample ballot will be our application for an absentee ballot. The person could fill it out at that point in time. We will also, and we've got it up on our website now, we have a fillable form to help Courtney, because a lot of our folks, their handwriting is not great. So the fillable form, all they have to do is type it in and sign it and send it back to us. those, like we mentioned, the tips, we think that will help people make decisions or at least know that they have more opportunities than Election Day as far as voting. One of our biggest challenges the week of April 27th to June 2nd is to tweak our training for the poll officials. The videos that we have done, we are working to make the process, to the extent possible, touchless as far as the voter. So they will be able to operate all of the voting equipment without touching it with their finger. We think that will be a big plus. We've discovered that coffee stir sticks work just as well as your finger, so we will have those available for all the voters. In the last election, we had the voters actually signing the electronic poll book. We're going to waive that this time and use only the signature portion on the application. That way the voter doesn't have to have a stylus to sign the EPB because it requires a stylus to sign. We're also looking at, for hand sanitizer, the voters would be encouraged to use the hand sanitizer when they enter the precinct and then when they leave the precinct. We think that's the best approach to not slow down the process, because the hand sanitizer, if your hand is still wet with sanitizer, when you touch your ballot, it could create a problem for us. So skipping on down then to May 1st, I've got a draft that John prepared that we're going to send over to Metro HR. Because of the law change, Metro employees can be poll officials. We will send that out at that point in time. Hopefully, we'll be in a better position to have more Metro employees at work so that they will actually see the email. That's one of the reasons we're waiting till the 1st of May. Then John and Lisa are geared up to figure out exactly how we'll do the interviews with the poll officials to the extent possible, either by Zoom or Skype or some way, so that we can limit their exposure to the staff here in the office. Week of May 4th, we're looking to mail the sample ballots. We'll post the fillable form on other social media. We're going to do an outreach to the poll officials at that point in time. We feel like there will be some discussion either from the governor, from the mayor, someone about opening up Davidson County at this point in time or around then. So that's when we will time touching base with the poll officials. We feel like if the stay-at-home order has been lifted a little bit, we will get a better response from the poll officials than if we go out right now. We're also looking to identify the poll workers that we will need to help us with absentee voting, since we're spending a bigger number of absentee ballots. And at that point in time, we will be setting up the Green Hills room to be the majority processing area for absentee voting. We know we're going to get a number of phone calls, so we will be setting up our phones and bringing in poll officials just to deal with the phone calls for absentee that we'll receive. At that same point in time, we'll be sending out the letters to the prison wardens. We're going to operate prison voting, much like an absentee vote, where we would not have poll officials going to the prison. We don't feel like that will be an option at this point in time. As soon as the absentee ballot goes out, we will be touching base with the press to try to get them to pick up on absentee voting as a good option for a large percent of the population. May 8th, first day we can receive absentee voting. We've got a couple tentative commission meetings scheduled. Week of June 1st. Excuse me. I'll let Bobby speak to what he's kind of thinking on touching base with the polling locations and why we're not doing it before June 1st.
Okay, this is Bobby. So when we say communicate with polling locations, we're going to concentrate really on the private locations. We're kind of split down the middle, around 80 public, 80 private. So we're going to concentrate on that private. And while we're not reaching out sooner is, we just don't want to plant that seed in their mind to deny us using their facility.
Good deal. Okay. We have another tentative commission meeting. June the 2nd, we'll be notifying the poll officials of their assignment and sending out their online training. June 22nd, military ballots, another commission meeting. July the 8th, curbside delivery of nursing home ballot. I'll let Courtney talk a little bit about how we're going to change the process for nursing homes.
Well, as you know, nursing homes are closed to all guests right now. So I'm working with the nursing home activities directors to basically help their residents to receive, to choose the ballot they would like to receive. And then I will send them prepackaged, ready to go, and we'll have someone to deliver them as a group to that facility, to the director or activities director, so they can give direction and answer any questions that we might have. I don't want them to have an unlimited time to have that ballot laying around, because what happens is they just forget to send it in. So we'll deliver them, and then 2 days later we'll pick those ballots back up and all the materials that we have sent. Although we will not be personally helping them, the activities director will be deputized to help their residents.
Okay, so our last commission meeting, we had discussion about our plans. Should we not have enough poll officials to be able to man all of the precincts? Right now, we're thinking that social distancing will essentially force us to reduce the number of poll officials we have in each location so that we can allow voters to come in. We will be controlling the number of total people inside the building at any one time. That's for both election day and early voting. In the event that we do not have enough poll workers for election day at any particular precinct, and we won't know this up until right now, tentatively, we're saying 10 days out. But we would have already identified in each district the larger locations where we could consolidate a precinct should we not have enough poll officials leading up to Election Day. So similar to what we had for the tornado, we would already have identified where we would go in each district that could accommodate a larger crowd. Because keep in mind, we're already dealing with social distancing, and now we're going to have two precincts combined in a single location. So we're going to have to figure that out ahead of time and be ready to pull that trigger should it happen. In the event that we have a significant reduction in the number of poll officials, right now our plan is to fall back to our early voting sites. We would keep all the equipment and everything at those early voting sites so that, if necessary, on short notice, we could cause voting to happen at our 11 early voting sites instead of the 160 precincts. That kind of follows the model of what Wisconsin had to do, but that would be our fallback position. That's kind of a worst case scenario. Any questions, concerns?
How many of those locations would we have?
We would have our traditional 11. And the reason we went with that is the public they're knowledgeable of those 11 sites. So, all the equipment's there. All we have to do is ship people, and we're ready to go. It's not like we're trying to bring up a new site or anything.
I think that makes sense.
Normally, we bring the equipment back to Bobby a day or so after early voting. The equipment will stay there during the 5 days, and we will be ready just in case we have to pull the trigger on this.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
And if I may, lessons learned from the tornado. This is something that we might consider leaving the equipment at these facilities in future elections in case we have a catastrophe.
Well, Lord knows we've had enough catastrophes lately to get us thinking about catastrophes. So, good job, guys.
Bobby's correct. That would allow us to be much more nimble in how we approach should we have another catastrophe. We won't have to get up at 1 o'clock. It may be 2.
I mean, sleeping in. We need that extra hour. I mean, right, guys? We'd be lazy.
Other comments and questions? There's clearly been some good thought put into this, and I know you guys will continue to refine and tweak as necessary. I just want to make a note that we've held, as you can see on the timeline, for I think about every other week through May, time for commission meetings. And we can certainly always cancel those, but we thought, kind of given this changing landscape, if you will, it might be good for us to hold those dates right now. If this is, and I know we're going to talk about next meeting, but that's why we appear to have what would obviously be more commission meetings than usual in this draft timeline. I just think the more we communicate right now, the better.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I want to ask a question about the locking of the bags and the boxes and reviewing the cards. I'm sorry. I know we'll need to do that sometime in June, and I need to ask about the social distancing on locking of the bag.
Right. We're going to present the commission some options that we think will accommodate social distancing. We know that's going to be a big challenge, but give us a little bit of an opportunity to think about exactly how we would do that. That's why we set it for June, is so that we would have the next few weeks to figure out exactly how we're going to do it and meet the social distancing.
Okay, no problem.
Good question.
Chairman Reynolds, this is Jim Delanis. I've got some questions also.
I would be surprised if you didn't, so I'm glad you're speaking up. Thank you.
Mr. Roberts, Mark Gowen's email mentions PPE and a number of different things. I was a little unclear as to the details of what the state was going to provide. Does it include masks, gowns, gloves, eyeglasses, hand sanitizer, all of those things?
It includes, right now, he's got a firm commitment on mask and gloves. He's working on the face shield, the gowns, and the hand sanitizer. What he's told me is that they are working right now with Anheuser-Busch to be able to provide the hand sanitizer.
Okay. I have not seen gowns listed as a necessary PPE. What is the gown and what does it do?
Well, this would be essentially to, I guess, protect the person's clothing, those type of things, so that they would not potentially take virus home with them when they left the facility.
Okay.
I mean, we're a little bit dependent on the state, and I'm sure they're receiving guidance from CHEMA and the CDC health department as to what they think we need.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Under state law, currently, and pursuant to the schedule we prepared, we have to review the cards. And at a meeting.
Right. I have sent Mark an email to ask exactly what his thoughts are on doing that, and I haven't heard back yet. So it's on his radar.
Sure. Okay. Under the schedule, and I think pursuant to the state law, the deadline to request an absentee ballot is July 30th, and then Election Day is August 6th. If I remember right, that the short distance between July 30th and August 6th usually leads to some misunderstandings and some voters who are upset. I just note that. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but we're going to have more absentee ballots this year probably than most years, so that might be more of an issue this year than it usually is.
And depending on how the virus may impact the postal service, it could be even bigger issue.
Okay. You mentioned waiving the voters' signatures on the EPBs. That's not a legal requirement, is it, that they sign the EPB?
No. And in fact, Mark gave us essentially special permission the last election to try to capture that, just so that we could get a feel for how hard it is, does it work, what do the signatures look like. So it's not a requirement.
Okay. Some of what we're talking about might cost more money, and I just note that at some point we probably need to be sure we get buy-in from Metro and the state. I expect we'll get it, but it might just be something on the list.
The state received part of the $400 million from the federal government that was allocated with the CARE Act.
Mm-hmm.
for election. So I'm sure that's what Mark is spending some of that money on, the gloves and the mask and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. Metro government has asked that we keep up with all expenditures associated with COVID-19. I think they have an opportunity to request reimbursement for the federal government for some of those expenses also. Okay. In addition, we've asked Metro, on top of what our initial budget request, we've asked for an additional $50,000 for this election and for November. I mean, we don't, a lot of this, we just don't know really what's coming down the pike. I know, like, the additional envelopes that we will need for absentee, the state is ordering those. In fact, we are picking up our second pickup. We're getting 10,000 more envelopes on Monday. So the state recognizes that they're going to have to step up the process. They've got a much bigger envelope order out there. They're giving us, Davidson County, all of their reserves right now, just because they know that we're kind of up against the wall in trying to prepare for the number that we expect.
Okay. You also mentioned absentee. Well, you mentioned voting in prison and said that it would be much like absentee voting. How is that going to work?
Let me let Courtney describe what we previously had done and what we will be doing for August.
I have to notify the warden and provide them with the materials for the inmates to get an inmate application to vote by absentee. Is what it's called. And so I send that material to the jail and to the prison, along with a list of people that I know are registered voters from Davidson County. Those voters then have to sign the inmate application, send that to me, I send them a ballot. If I receive by the deadlines that they have, I then send either someone from another county, that county's commission, or from our own prisons here in this town. I send deputies to see their ballots, see that they are empty, they have not been voted, allow the inmate to vote, and then they take, the inmate provides a stamp, and the whole official takes it to the closest United States Postal Service office and mails it to us. What I had said for a change is that they will have to provide the inmate application, which they always do. The new thing was then that I would ask them to allow the inmate to mail the ballots to us, because we are not allowed at the prisons right now because the prisons are locked down because of COVID-19. And just essentially let them do an absentee ballot like we've always done, like everyone else does. Now, we have 4 individuals that are inmates in prisons right now. Now, the jail population has certainly changed, but we only have 4 left out of the over 800 that we had when we first began this program. So it's just 4 individuals we're talking about.
I see. Okay, I got it now. Thank you. Finally, on our fallback position with the 11th site, the one thing that got a little confusing to the public during the tornado election was that some of the media was saying that all of the vote, anybody could vote at the time that we had created. Instead of, and so the distinction between our Howard School location and our office location and the 3 super sites that we set up that day, that distinction was lost on some of the voters, and the media put out some information that was inaccurate about that. When we set up these 11 sites, will everybody be able to vote in those 11 sites? In other words, it'd be kind of a free open. Each one of the 11 sites, anybody from any part of the county can vote there.
It'll be just like early voting.
Okay.
So think of early voting just extended to election day with no precincts open.
Okay. And the plan that you came up with and the staff came up with for the tornadoes, I think, was done under the authority of the emergency order that the governor issued. Would we need some additional authority in order to move from 160 precincts to 11 voting sites?
That falls under the new state law.
That's already covered.
We just have to notify Mark that we need to do it.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else? This was a very good update. Thank you. Thanks for all you guys are doing to think through this. If there are no more questions for our AOE and the team, do we have any members of the general public who have joined us? I know we don't have our traditional sign-in sheet this afternoon, but is anyone on with a public comment?
This is Dick Williams. Sorry I didn't get to sign in.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to join until about 2 o'clock because your public notice has the wrong ID number.
Yes. Did you say this is Dick Williams? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you.
And this is Debbie Gould with the League of Women Voters. And
right.
Again, I want to thank everybody for all the planning that you all are doing. That's just great. And I hope that you can share with us the tips that you've come up with so that we can post it with our voting information and just give people another opportunity to look at that information in advance.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Did you have, I'm sorry for the delay in getting started. You probably did not miss that much, given all of us were, we were struggling there for a minute with the phone. But did you have a comment as well in addition to Debbie's?
Well, I second what you said. What I did hear is about the timeline and the preparation for dealing with the virus. And I just reiterate her point that we appreciate all the thought that's gone into it, and that both you all and apparently the state are trying to be proactive about this. And I wondered if you could email a copy of the draft timeline and Mark's letters, maybe to both of us and maybe anybody else.
And Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming we'll put all that on the website?
I think I will probably, until we get it firmed up more, I can have people send me an email and request information.
Okay.
And once it's finalized, we can put it up on the website.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of this is dependent on how Tennessee and Davidson County move out of the stay-at-home order.
Right. Should we get a copy of the draft timeline with a big mark for the draft and a copy of Mark's letter?
Sure. If you'll send me an email, Jeff Roberts at Nashville.gov.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Kathy Carlson. I'm a freelancer for the Ledger, and I'll send an email with the same request for information that Dick was talking about, and I appreciate being able to join in on the meeting.
Thank you very much. We do need now to set a date and time for our next meeting. And I guess my first query to the commission would be, and I think Tricia might have had to drop off. Is she still with us? Yes. But if there is general agreement or discussion, would you like to gather again 2 weeks from today on Friday, May 1? We may not necessarily have approval items, but if you think it's helpful to sort of take a look at what more we know at that point in time and what additional steps may be taken or tweaks, as I mentioned a moment ago, we're certainly open to the conversation, and we would need a motion and approval. And I will also say selfishly, 1:30 on May 1 is not as good for me if others could check their calendars as well. Is there a sense that you want to wait a few more days? But I think we will need, given the unusual way we're operating, we may need a roll call vote on this.
Chairman Reynolds, what time do you prefer on May 1st?
Morning is great, or any time. It's the 1 to 2 hour that's problematic for me that day. And obviously, we picked this time today because we did need to move on ballot approval, and we knew we would have some answers late yesterday. So you folks tell me, and I'm sorry to be difficult in that 1 hour.
This is Jim Delantis. I'm good all day on that day, so others can weigh in.
And let me ask our AOE too. Is there a time that's better for you all in your day?
No, I think we can work with whatever time fits your schedule, and we're not. May 1st is not a magic date, you know.
Right.
You want to move it a few days.
This is Jesse. I'm free starting at 9:30 a.m. on May 1st, and I'm free until 3:30.
Okay. AJ?
Yes, ma'am. I'm free all day on that day.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, not knowing Trish's and knowing we may have to adjust a little, do we want to say a tentative time of 10 a.m., May 1?
That works for Jesse.
Okay.
Works for AJ.
Okay.
That works for Jen.
Excellent. Thank you. And let's do say tentative. Let's just in case, since we don't have Commissioner Hirschfeld on the line. With that, may I have a motion?
I've just got a message from Commissioner Hirschfeld, and she is good with that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Nikki, do I need a motion to approve this date and time then for the next meeting, since we are meeting telephonically?
Well, you don't need to. It can be, but it doesn't have to be a formal vote.
Okay.
The time can change, and the chair can address the timing issues of the meeting. So,
okay. So
you can just see a discussion that that's when the next meeting is contemplated to be held.
Okay. So we will say right now we are setting a meeting Friday, May 1 at 10 a.m. Perfect. Anything else for the good of the order, other than for us all to continue to look out for each other and be safe and well? Anything else from any of the commissioners or from Mr. Roberts? I will need a motion to adjourn, and we will need a quick roll call on that. May we have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved by Delana.
Thank you. A second, please.
This is Jesse. I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Neal. Kelly, would you quickly call the roll for us, please?
Certainly. Chairman Reynolds, how do you vote?
Yes.
I know you said Commissioner Hertzfeld had to leave out.
She has dropped the
Okay. Commissioner Starling, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Neal, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Delanis, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. Thank you all. We are adjourned. Take care. And thanks to the team. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.